Hello and welcome to Antimatters. Today we have episode 2 of the Myrmica Rubra series, a full introduction to my 4-queen and a few hundred worker colony. They currently live in a 30-litre fish tank in a really bioactive setup. But let's jump back from now, back to when our journey began. It was maybe late April, I think, and over winter my 4-year-old Lasius niger colony had sadly died. I have so many great memories with them, and hopefully one day I'll make a video of them all. I do think I do have a little bit of footage kicking around somewhere, I've just got to find it. Anyway, I was pretty sad and was left with a large natural setup. At this point, frost had pretty much destroyed all the bioactivity and biodiversity in the tank, and it was basically just soil and a bit of sand for drainage. So I did some late night internet shopping a little while later, thinking, oh, it's April, so there won't be any ants around for a little while. Still at least 2 months till nuptial flights around here. So I got some Mesobarbarus ants from Best Ants UK in hopes they'd eventually move into the tank. Although, as they say, when it rains, it pours. So the next morning, I'm walking to work and I spot a stone that I believe would be a perfect nest for ants, and I decide to give it a flip. It was pretty warm and one of the first proper spring days of this year, so under the rock I find about 200 Myrmica Rubra workers. They were all still cold and sat pretty still, so they didn't really run everywhere, they just sat there. So I ran as fast as I could, found a tub and popped them into the tub. I put the tub away and came back to it after work. At that point I had no plan of what to do with the little colony in the tub. The best bet, I figured though, was to stick them in the fish tank and I'd figure out what to do with the messes housing later on. I lifted the rock out and put it carefully into the tank, and the move was done. It was super easy and probably the simplest one I've ever done. I wish they were all that easy. I applied a big gloopy line of Vaseline, which worked for containing my Lasius niger colony. Whether it would work for my Rubras here, I didn't know at the time. But after a few days of them settling in, I started to notice a few of them were crossing the Vaseline. And for a little bit I made a little moat just to stop them escaping, and it seemed to do the job. Slowly I managed to kind of clean the Vaseline off. The stuff is a pain in the bum to get off once you put it on, so that took a little while, and replaced it with PTFE, which is kind of works for everything, to be honest. The PTFE did the job, so I removed the moat. Initially I had a small dieback. I think that's normal after hibernation, so I was pretty chilled about that. I began adding some isopods and springtails to help the circular life roll, and they settled in really smoothly. Before too long though, there were hundreds of baby blood lice, and they became pretty hungry, and I had to start adding more moss as they just eat it all. They basically eat all the green bits and just be left with the stalks. I also added a fair sized chunk of rotten wood up the mossy end of the tank. I find this layout lets you water them easier and makes a good hydration gradient essential in any natural setup. The moss and log also retain moisture and keep the whole tank humid. An angle as well, so low at the front or high at the back, etc. also makes your tank look a bit bigger if you're interested. Before long, the ants began making another nest in the log, and they would retreat into there when it got really hot, like in a heat wave, when it would get like at least 30 Celsius in the room they were in. But yeah, they'd hide in the nice humid log in those times and keep nice and safe. When I found them, they had no brood, and I waited anxiously to see any signs of brood production. They held out on me for months. Eventually though, one day I noticed a callow little worker bathing in a warm spot. They'd been chomping down on protein, but this was my first real proof that there were babies and new workers were getting popped out. Ever since, they've been popping up everywhere, and the population seems to have increased to at least, I'd say, 500 now. As I said, this colony loved its protein too. They are always super hungry for the next big bug, and so far they've eaten mealworms, locusts, crickets, flies, spiders, dubia roaches, cockroaches, roast chicken, and flapjack, and probably more things that I've forgotten. The whole colony comes alive for protein. The queens feel safe surfacing for a snack too, which is the best. Every feeding time at least one queen is there. It's the best thank you an ant could do. There are at least 4 queens in this colony, last time I got a look. That comes up from one day I saw 4 queens on top at dinner time. There might be more that just stay underground, but I'll never know. One of the queens though is definitely dominant. She's bigger and makes the other ants submit. She also sleeps the most and often nods off atop the rock. She's my favourite queen of all the ants. If you're thinking about keeping rubras, I definitely recommend them. They're hardy, active, adaptable ants that can really put on a show. The one thing this species could do better is graveyards. There's undertakers with bodies all the time. They stash them away too, so you think you've got them all after you've cleaned it out, and they'll go and find one of their stashes, pull out a load more, and suddenly they're all got dead bodies again. The only fix I've found for this is if you put something that doesn't smell like the nest into the colony, such as a flat rock, they'll begin dumping all the bodies onto the flat rock, which you can later remove and clean and repeat, which does kind of help cleaning them out a little bit. This nest has really made Myrmica rubras my favourite species to keep. They're not very extreme at anything, but are low stress and low maintenance for high activity and high personality. It's a perfect combo if you ask me. They've also shown me the true nature of rubras as peaceful neighbours to many other animals, not aggressive savages intent on stinging, and I'm still unstung myself. I find them a very calming ant though. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you real soon. PS, hope you like the stabler footage. I got a new camera.